Thank you everyone for joining us for day one of Hindu Dharma, Hindutva, and Hindu Dvesha, this important initiative and conference brought together by many different organizations. And let me just introduce Sri Kalyan Vishwanathan, President of Hindu University of America. And we did a whole preview of this conference last week. And Kalyanji, maybe I can just hand it to you to give us context and get into this important initiative, which is an 8-day conference that will take place over Saturdays and Sundays for the next month. And we thank you for participating and joining. Kalyanji, maybe I'll hand it off to you as the institution builder in chief, putting Hindu University of America on the map and leading us in this important initiative. Kalyanji, please.
Thank you, Ankur. Namaskar to everybody. My pranams to Swami Mitrananda and Swami Sarveshananda, who's so graciously consented to join this conversation. I want to provide just a little bit of context for this conference. Most of us are aware that there was another conference held a little over a month ago called Dismantling Hindutva. And global Hindutva, dismantling global Hindutva. And it rattled and troubled a lot of Hindus worldwide. And one of the confusions that it generated was the premise that it's only seeking to dismantle Hindutva, not Hindu Dharma itself. Or dismantling Hindutva was just the first step towards dismantling Hindu Dharma itself. And in fact, dismantling is not a new term. It has had its avatars of the past. So we decided that it is probably time to explore these terms. What is Hindu Dharma and Hindutva, and what is the relationship between the two? Are they merely two different terms representing the same phenomenon, or are they terms referencing two entirely different phenomena, or phenomena that are overlapping? Overlapping in the sense they share a lot of commonality, but they're also distinct in some ways. So recognizing that within the Hindu world, there is always a plurality of ways of understanding anything. Any one thing, there is a plurality of ways of understanding, and that is endemic, natural to the Hindu world. We thought we will try and assemble a galaxy of eminent voices to share from their perspective the correlations, the connections, similarities, differences, how to understand these terms, whether we should embrace these terms partly, or we should run away from some of them, distance ourselves from some terms. What is the right thing to do? And of course, each one has to decide what's right for them. But the object of this exercise is to perhaps throw some light, bring some illumination to an area of potential, an arena of potential confusion and disputation and so on. So as such, it is an exercise in knowledge, seeking knowledge. And with that introduction to the conference itself, it's going to, as Ankur said, it's going to take place over 2 days a week for about 4 weeks, 2 hours per day. So we're going to go for 2 hours today, 2 hours tomorrow, and then again the next weekend, 2 hours on Saturday and Sunday. So by the time we finish 4 weekends, we would have covered a tremendous breadth of perspectives on this conference theme. Okay, so there is Hindu Dharma, Hindutva, and Hindu Dvesha. Now I may just say Hindu Dvesha is a word that we are using It is intersecting with, obviously, with the other word, Hinduphobia, Hindumesia, Hindu odium, many other ways of referencing almost the same, maybe slightly different facet of the same phenomenon. With that, let me just quickly introduce the two Swamijis who are joining us. Swami Mitrananda is an eminent and dynamic disciple of Pujya Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda. Swami Mitrananda is currently serving as director of the All India Chinmaya Yuva Kendra, based in Chennai, India. He has spearheaded many innovative nationwide projects, such as the Youth Empowerment Program, Awakening Indians to India, the Family Quiz, Chinmaya Udghosh, an international youth magazine, and among others. He's also initiated Chinmaya Institute of Management, Chennai chapter, which is reaching out to colleges and corporate organizations with a blend of management and spirituality. He's a highly sought after speaker in the corporate circle, regularly speaks on the Upanishads, Gita, and many other traditional texts. He has used powerful and innovative experiential learning tools, methods such as adventure, travel, biking, car rallies, theater, writing, and creativity to convey the profound message of Vedanta, propelling individuals to tap into their hidden potential. Okay, that is Swami Mitrananda. Let's extend a very warm welcome to him. And the second panelist today is Swami Sarveshananda, who is from my own city, Dallas, Texas, where I find myself nowadays. He is also an eminent and dynamic Shishya, student of Swami Chinmayananda. Swami Sarveshananda is the National Director of Chinmaya Mission Yuva Kendra West, the youth wing of Chinmaya Mission, which manages chapters across North America, including the West Indies. So the Chinmaya Youth Wing, Yuva Kendra, aims to increase spiritual awareness among youth and young adults so that they live life purposefully, with a clear and noble personal vision and an attitude of service to the community. He's a dynamic and engaging speaker. Swami Sarveshananda works tirelessly to spread the wisdom of Vedanta through retreats, workshops, camps, training sessions, innovative youth programs, and jnana yajnas that inspire young people. Okay. With that very brief introduction, I want to hand over the panel to Swami Mitrananda. So you're going to kick off. This is the inaugural session, and you're going to set the stage for the entire next 4 weeks of deliberations. Over to you, Swami Mitrananda.
Namaskar. My salutations to everybody. Am I audible loud and clear?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. Congratulations to the organizers for this beautiful initiative and celebrating Heritage Month, which I think should slowly become global soon. And I also take, maybe this is a tongue-in-cheek statement, we should thank the people who organized earlier dismantling global Hindutva. Why? Because they played a very good role, very vital role in awakening people. There were very many Hindus who were dormant, who were not ready to stand up, who were not voicing out, and we were struggling to reach those guys. How do you wake this up? And this dismantling global Hindutva group actually woke up, and the response which came from the Hindu community to that is unbelievable, by which they have made the universities also withdraw some of the logos, etc., universities to give statements. This is a very positive sign. The passiveness or passively practicing Hinduism is over. Now, coming back to the topic, Hindu Dharma and Hindutva. Hindu Dharma is an ancient way of life called Sanatan Dharma. And Hindutva means Hindu Tattva. the principles of Hinduism. So on understanding the word etymologically, there cannot be difference. Both are same. So what is that Hindu way of life? The Sanatan way of life is, the Sanatan way of life accommodates, it is all inclusive of primitive level of seekers to the sublime level of seekers. Now, this is something which is absolutely unique and beautiful about Hindu Dharma, which has the depth to accommodate the primitive, the one who is just starting, and someone who is highly advanced. So these two ends are accommodated, and it is very, very all-inclusive, absolutely pluralistic. It is all-inclusive of, different methods of worship. Because if someone finds a particular method of worship, Hindu Dharma or Sanatan Dharma or Tattva of Hindus, Hindu Tattva, is the same, saying, yes, fine, you have your own way of worship. And in fact, people have been advised by our own books. Bhagavad Gita, in fact, tells very clearly, na buddhi bedam janayet, ajnanat karma sangina. Those who are involved in different types of worship do not unsettle their mind. Let them be, because slowly they will come. Joshayet sarva karmani. Slowly they will turn towards the higher. So do not unsettle the mind of anybody who is seeking in their own level. This is the depth and the beauty of Sanatan Dharma, of all-inclusive. Now, this all-inclusiveness of the primitive to sublime, when it is presented, naturally people will understand it at different levels. Now, what happens is sometimes people pick up something from a lower level statement to a higher level statement, or pick up something from a higher level statement to a lower level statement, and then they start debating. In the past, debate was the way to discuss and find out the truth. But slowly the debates moved away, and it became a kind of narratives being settled. And the people who are in power, who has power, they set the narrative more powerfully. For example, before I come to what is the difference between Hindu Dharma and Hindutva, both are same etymologically if you see, but in functional ways, the perception is different. Now, this all accommodating Hindu Dharma sometimes is deliberately misrepresented. For example, Aryan invasion theory. If it is a theory, it should not get into our history books. If it is a fact, it should get into the history books. If it is a theory, you're not very sure of it. And when you're not very sure of it, you call it a theory, and then you place it into the history book. People read, and they think this is real. People moved from Central Asia to India, and basically Sanskrit came from Central Asia. It's not from Bharat. And they pushed the people living in Bharat to South India, and they called them Dravidians. Now, this narrative became true for a long time, and it was part of our history books. Now, when somebody gets up and saying, I think there is a flaw here, and tries to prove it, and tries to prove it with all kinds of proofs. It could be astronomical proofs. It could be carbon dating. It could be studying the rivers. It could be studying water bodies, oceanology, various things. And then you understand this theory doesn't have any basis. Now, when you start proving this doesn't have any basis, such people who felt there were injustice or wrong interpretations of Hinduism, when they rise up to voice it out or place their facts, etc., that who are trying to change the narrative and place the facts once again for people to perceive, that group would be called Hindutva. An action-oriented group generally is called there. Now, or for example, if the temples in Bharat are governed by the government, and the same benefit the other communities in Bharat don't have. They have the rights to handle their temples as they want, perform their rituals, pujas, practices, seminars, sermons as they like. But whereas when it comes to Hindu temples, the control is with the government. Now, people find this is unfair because everybody who comes to control are not necessarily a devotee. It is more like a government employed person. So people start voicing out, saying this is not correct. I think the Hindu temple should be given to the Hindus. Or there were constant narratives in bringing out something or other why Hindus should not have their festival celebrated. At every point, there would be some difference or other. At every point, there will be a narrative, and the most popular celebrity, well-known people will voice out. Be it Diwali, be it Holi, be it anything, Ganesh Chaturthi, they will bring a different narrative, basically to say, you Hindus don't do this. Now, when somebody like this organized way comes up and presents themselves a strong narrative, the common Hindu who is not associated to Hindu Tattva or Hindu Dharma, he's a Hindu, mostly by birth, but still not got into practicing Hindu, who has not understood the Hindu Tattva or Hindu Dharma, this person gets confused. And this narratives become stronger. And when these people get confused, there is now this is like a weapon used to confuse Hindus. In this case, some people rise up, some bring out facts, some argue, and some start presenting, saying this is incorrect, this is not acceptable, this we will oppose, this is our right. When these voices come out, the best way to silence those voices is to call them a fundamentalist, a fascist, a Nazi. Bhakt, such a lovely word. Bhakti yoga, bhakt is a beautiful word, but now the word has been misused. Bhakt, fanatic, and bhakt are equated. Now these are deliberately done. A fanatic is not a bhakt. Hindu cannot be a fanatic at all because the Hindu philosophy is all accommodative. But then you call a devotee and you name it equal to a fascist or a Nazi or by terming him bhakt. And now those kind of narratives went into a term called Hindutva. Now, how did this term Hindutva come? What is the origin of this term? When a nation gets suppressed for a long time, there were Islamic invasions, and then there were colonizations. Europeans came. It's not just the British. British held a larger part of India. There was French who invaded India. There were Dutch who invaded India. And their atrocities also are very, very severe. And British had this larger for almost close to 200 years. And the regular school, Gurukula, etc., were destroyed. And we were made to feel you're primitive, outdated, barbaric, forgetting that we had universities in our nation, in our country, even before anybody of them could come. 2000 years ago, we had major universities. Takshashila, Nalanda, Vikramashila, Kanchi, Vallabha. I can go on. Across strategic places of Bharat, we had universities. It's not that the colonials came in, the British came and taught us education. But that's the narrative which they tried. So when they came in and the Islamic invasion, then the colonization, when they all came and Hindu by practice, the Hindus were suppressed for a long time. We thought after independence, there could be something. When India became independent, we thought we can take it up and we'll sort out all these issues. But then the policies became secular. And in this kind of a secularism, religion should be avoided. And appeasement for minorities became more. That became a kind of a vote banks. And when these things happened in Bharat, people found this is not correct. We need to use this. And we have to stand together to raise our voice. And then came this voice called Hindutva. What they meant by Hindutva is the values of Hindu culture has to be practiced. You can believe in any god, but there are basic values of a Bharatiya that must be followed. Indian culture has to be followed, no matter what's your faith. Like, for example, in Indonesia, even today, their national dance is Ramayana. It's the largest Islamic country, but they have not given up on their culture. But here, even the cultural erosion was happening. So people raised this voice. That's when it came that Hindutva means living Hindu values. Not necessarily it is spiritual values alone. Not necessarily it is prayer. If you are living here, these are the basic samskaras we had. Like looking at one another and saying, Namaste, I salute the divine in you. Or touching the feet of the elders. Or looking at the river as a mother. Or calling the earth as a mother. These are basics. It doesn't matter which religion you follow. These are Hindutva values. But they had a problem with all of these things too. So when this group slowly gathered, the voice, they who started speaking, bringing out awareness, they were started termed as Hindutva. Now comes a divide which was never there, to create a divide. And the confused people of this lot would say, I'm a Hindu Dharma, or I am practicing Hinduism. I have nothing against Hinduism, but I'm against Hindutva. What are you against Hindutva? Someone raising a voice? Someone asking for rights? Someone saying this interpretation is wrong, correct it? So when someone started voicing out, then the anti-Hindu forces or Hindu Dvesha forces gathered together and started attacking and made these voices look like fanatics. It was not fanatics. It was basic rights. It was not aggressive. It is defensive. You attack, I defend myself. Now the right to defend is also taken away. And now it is branded. And trying to brand, not branded, trying to brand this as a fanatic group. Earlier they called the term which they used sometime back in Bharat was saffron terror. Saffron terror? Where was terror? And where was saffron terror? Where are the guns? Nobody has them. If we had, nobody would do all this to us. We don't have guns. We are not a terrorist group, but saffron terror was used to just brand. And then there was a cross-border terror attack from the neighboring country. And the guys came dressed as Hindus, etc., wearing Hindu symbols on their body, went and shot, probably to prove that there is saffron terror. Luckily, that was dismantled. There was one policeman who died by name Tukaram, saved one of the terrorists and proved that this guy is from Pakistan. Now that idea of saffron terror dwindled slowly, which must have happened with a lot of cooperation within the borders. But when things like that came, and this divide happened, Hindutva, and Hindutva today is perceived by some, and majority understands it clearly, that it is a necessity tool to stand up and ask for your rights. Stand up and explain. Stand up and say, correct the wrong narratives, put things in place, write the right history. These are very, very essential issues. When someone supports it, it comes to that. Basically, a weapon called fanatism, or the terms used as fascist, is used to silence anybody voicing out. So anybody wants to talk and then you say, I'm a practicing Hindu, then you would be called either a Bhakt or a fascist or a Hindutva. This is a game people played. And to me, why are they playing this game? What is their phobia about us? What is that? Because we never invaded anybody. We don't go out to convert people. We believe all paths are same. All paths lead to God. We have no theological enemy. Why are they against? Unless there is some personal vested interest and intolerance to all other religions, unless they change their perception that others are not enemies, this cannot happen. So somewhere they would like to see that anybody who doesn't believe in their faith are theological enemies or enemies of God, etc. And now there is a war. We cannot coexist that way. Coexistence is possible when two people get up and say, your path is fine, my path is fine. You follow what you are doing, I'll follow mine. Then we can shake hands. That is the meeting point. If this meeting point doesn't happen, then coexistence is not possible. Then we each one has to raise their voice, explain, talk about it to people to preserve yourself. Otherwise, we are shrinking. Once upon a time, what was Bharat, dominatingly Hindu populated area, how much of it has shrunk? How much of it has shrunk? Geographically, how much we have shrunk? We are reducing and reducing, and even within Bharat, there are states where Hindus are not anymore majority, shrinking. So if this voice is not heard and stood up, we will shrink further. Please remember, if we do not know to reclaim what we have lost, we will not be able to sustain what we have. So the voices of dharmic voices standing up together, even if they call those voices fanatic, we should not be bothered by it. Because the only idea is to call you fanatic is to make you quiet. If the moment they say you're very fanatic, you're, you're talking like a fundamentalist, then the Hindu goes back, because that's one thing which is against the principles of Hinduism. Hinduism is all accommodative. We respected all paths, all faiths came here, we gave them, they came here as refugees, we accommodated them. So the basic principle of Hinduism and the tattva of Hinduism is that knowledge, the philosophy of Hindus is, it is universal. Every path is valid, everybody is accommodated, and our idea of one family is not just the earth. If there is life living in the next galaxy, beyond Milky Way, they are also part of the same divine. This is Hindu Dharma. This is what Sanatan Dharma was. And this is what is Hindutva standing up to preserve these ideas. So these two terms are actually not required. And if it is there being used today, more like a weapon to silence people, I think people should get up and proudly say, yes, if you call me a Bhakt, I'm a Bhakt. If you call me a fanatic, that's your perception. I know what I'm doing. I'm much more universal than you are. So this is important. So in my understanding, these are deliberately played, and in a way what they try to do, dismantling and really speaking, the Hindu diaspora across the world is expanding. We are still 1 billion plus Hindus on this earth. Every sixth person is a Hindu. And this Hindu diaspora is expanding so well across the globe and well positioned, well placed. Now this is rattling people. They feel they are getting dismantled by Hindu presence. And why are Hindus in demand? Because the Hindu believes in that universal oneness. That's why Hindu is called everywhere. When a Hindu migrates from Bharat to some other part of the world, that Hindu is non-controversial. That Hindu is, he merges with that nation and together we progress, because that's what the culture teaches us. Parasparam bhavayantaha. Let the shreyas, let the best happen together, parasparam, mutually, let us progress. This is Hindu. And when this is expanding and people are positioning themselves, people get rattled and they try all these things. I think it's just a game, a trick being tried to somehow brand one or two dominating Hindu organizations as fanatics and get them to the level of saffron terror, militancy, etc., which has no basis, but this is what they're trying, so that these global organizations outside Bharat, which are sustaining the Hindu diaspora, may also get tagged to these organizations. So in my understanding, this dismantling global Hindutva is an attempt to get there, to connect Hindu organizations as terror organizations or terror connect, and so that the Hindu diaspora will not have the Hindu organizations supporting them. I think they made an attempt on this, and the reciprocation and the way in which the Hindus stood up to defend it was really, really amazing. Everywhere across the globe, people started talking about it, and the way in which people refuted these things, and within days, how comical the whole movement has become. Yes, I do understand some Hindus would be still confused because the right narrative has not reached. The only way forward is we have to speak the truth boldly, no matter how you brand. We have to present it in a way in which this generation will understand. Please remember, so much, everything depends upon how you communicate. For this generation, the younger generations to understand, we need to understand them well and see if I say this particular value, how would they understand it? Getting that in correctly, we have to do. My experience with the present generation, particularly the youth, is make them learn what you want, the way in which they like learning it. Make them do what you want, but the way in which they like doing it. If we can get this equation correctly, I think all the Hindu various important points could be conveyed, and the passive Hindu or confused Hindu will stand up boldly and make a claim. Today, he doesn't have enough data for the person to stand up and speak. It is our responsibility, global organizations' responsibilities, to see that the right information reaches. We have made a difference so far, but we need to walk furthermore. I think seminars like this and celebrating one whole month of Hindu heritage is a brilliant initiative. This kind of initiatives will reach people, and let's speak to our Hindu youth in a language in which they will understand it better. I think that way we can reach it. Nice talking to you. I stop here, and then we can later continue with discussions. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, Swami Mitrananda ji. Thank you very much for that. Those opening remarks. I want to ask the audience, kindly try and pay attention to the information, the messages being delivered by the Swamijis. There's a lot of distracting activity in the chat window. Kindly, please don't get distracted, okay? If at all that's possible. There is a Q&A box in this webinar, in this conference, and if you want to ask a question, please pose your question in the Q&A box, okay? So with that, Swami Sarveshananda ji, over to you. And you have a different vantage point. You live in the West. Your work is in the West now. And how do you see this challenge unfolding? And how should we respond to it? Over to you.
Thank you. Can you all hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay, good. First of all, thanks for this effort. It's an amazing thing to see that in spite of COVID, or probably because of COVID, we have the online platform being leveraged to connect the dots between several countries. As I saw many people joining in post their place of origin, it's amazing to see the kind of diversity coming in. Thank you to the Hindu University of America for taking a lead at it. Kalyanji especially, amazing work. First of all, with a prayerful attitude, I would love to wish everyone here happy Vijayadashami, happy Dasara. May Bhagavati and Bhagwan Sri Rama's blessings be upon us to strengthen our beliefs, strengthen our practices, and stand firm, because we are the seekers of truth, and that where there is truth, yato dharmaha tato jayaha. So that should be our confidence. With that prayerful note, let me begin. Without trying to sound repetitive, I'll just add things that which will make it comprehensive to that which Swami Mitranandaji has already spoken about. So the word Hindu Dharma is a given attribute. The ancient, we would look at it as the Vaidika Dharma, which is also known as Sanatana Dharma. Now, where did the word Hindu come from? Even today, in the Middle Eastern countries, when they refer to India or Bharat, in their local dialects, in their local languages, they refer to the land as Hind, and the practices that we practice and observe as Hindu. So the word Hindu Dharma is actually talking about the Vaidika Sanatana Dharma. And it is the oldest, and it is also the only continuing civilization in the known history. I will not go much into detail about the Hindu Dharma because the focus is on Hindutva and the American context. So I'll get into that chapter now. The word Hindutva is a pratyaya added to the word Hindu. Pratyaya is a suffix added, and the pratyaya is Tva pratyaya. Tva pratyaya essentially denotes or gives the meaning ness. Ness meaning the Hindu-ness. And this Tva pratyaya, when it is added to any, like sugarness, so sugaratva. So any word, when you add that tva, and when I say any word, it has to be a word that is added to a abstract noun, and the essence of it is denoted. Therefore, it is the essence of Hinduism, which is the Hindu Tattva. Now, having defined these two terms, when did this Hindutva begin? I mean, it is not something that was started by a particular person. As soon as the word Hindu started, the Hindu-ness of it is immediately recognized. It is not a narrative or a political movement or a standpoint. It is something which is synonymous. Synonymous, wherein these two words are inseparable. The word Hindu and Hindutva. Now, the historical reasons or causes where Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma has been constantly under attack or oppression or invaded. So the history is about 1300 years. Soon after the Islamic religion was established, there is something known as Ghazwa-e-Hind. So the first word Hind starts, you can recognize it there, where the belief is that you capture that which is Bharat and convert them to their religion. They will be given a great place in heaven. 4 years after Muhammad, the first attack started. Then came the Ghazni, Gori, and others. So the history tells us that it is from about 1300 years up until the time where the several expansionists who are evangelical by nature, who come under the garb of traders, Dutch, French, Portuguese, and finally the British. So for the last about 1300 years, there has been a constant attack to pulverize that which we hold as our Sanatana Dharma. And if you look at it, it has become possible for them to shrink Bharatavarsha, and many of us might be awestruck that from about the present day Afghanistan, Tibet, Nepal, the present day Bharat, then the Bangladesh, Burma, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, all of this was considered under Bharat. It was after 1857, the revolt that which under Mangal Pandey began, and it was pan-Indian revolt. It sparked, ignited. It was not like we were oppressed and there was nothing that we could do. There was a constant effort being put to rise up and uproot any of such efforts. So after that 1857, if you go and look into the British Parliament notes, they've taken account as to how to systematically break it. When the Islamic barbaric invaders attacked, starting from Babur all the way up until, no, even before that, Muhammad Ghazni and Gori, the Somnath temple is witness to it. So their idea was to break two parts. One, the educational institution where this identity of Sanatana Dharma, the Hindu Tattva is taught, that has to be broken or shattered. I mean, that itself is another topic worth spending time on. Then the second one are the temples. To a known historian, they would easily look at it as anywhere between 47,000 to about 80,000 temples that were destroyed in Bharatvarsha, destroyed or repurposed for their own religious purposes. A similar account by the Dutch, the French, Portuguese, and the British. They were not any better. They also did the same kind of oppression, wherein after the 1857, you find that the effort by Macaulay or Max Muller to get a grip at how do we break this civilization, how do we use this civilization to convert, to proselytize. So they said first thing is ban the Gurukula system. The second is to accommodate all of their history, because according to their own books, the history is about 4,000 years old, and here we have a continuation which we talk about much prior, thousands of years prior to that. So Max Muller was given the task to put it all and shrink the entire history. So that is where the Aryan invasion theory, Proto-Indo-European language theory, then came in the 1900s the Marxist socialist perspective, where their very belief system is that in order to create something new, you have to completely destroy the old. Therefore, the oldest one being the Hindu civilization, the Bharatiya civilization, destroy it. So these are the three main oppressive forces, historically speaking, which have been working. We thought after Indian independence, Bharatiya Swatantrata, we will have a reconciliation, we will have a platform, because 1,000 years of traumatic, oppressive environment lived through, we thought there will be a sense of relief. Bharat got independent, but Hindus are yet to find that independence. Civilizationally, religiously, spiritually, various aspects of it, yet to find it. The temples are yet in the hands of the Indian government, state governments, and we talk about secular, which came in through the emergency period. So yet to find that, and in amidst all this, there is a huge exodus of Hindus that have gotten settled, Bharatiyas that have gotten settled all across the globe. We here in US settled in, and the attack or the narratives that were generated with respect to the US context of the American Hindu lives, this global dismantling global Hindutva, I don't think it was off of a cuff that it started just in 2 months or 3 months of preparation. These narratives were prepared in a very systematic order. If you look into Sheldon Pollock or Wendy Doniger or their works, they have been researching this narrative and to create the strength of their narratives for the last 30-35 years. And in this meantime, they have produced enough number of professors, associate professors that have taken key positions in several universities, and these narratives have been run in so deep that the class textbooks talk about in the classrooms of the younger grades in the school systems, because they take their narratives from these professors and institute it into the school curriculum as young as 5-6 year old, fifth, sixth grade. By the time this student facing all this trauma gets into the university, it is in this university that they face these professors and teachers, or professors and associate professors, who have sown this very seed very young. So this hatred towards Hinduism is a historically recognizable one. They tried invading and it would not be shattered. Now they're trying to use this narrative game to get to the Hindu psyche. So the word Hindutva, when they use it, they club all the practices which they have taken from Maximilian times to the various research of the recent times. They have taken our practices and created words, created the meanings for those words, and thrust that onto the academia, and which, sadly to say, the Indian history books are yet to change it. The academia is pushing that narrative, and this narrative of Hindu bashing has taken a deep root to a point wherein we as Hindus don't even try understanding to explain it, like even simple, like Christians and Christianity, Hindu and Hindutva, they are inseparable. So these narratives that have been spun around, they take our terms, put it in their language and their way of explaining it, and we have to defend it. That is where we stand today. On the other hand, all those which are great practices of it, they are misappropriated. Civilizationally, culturally, religiously, scientifically, they have been misappropriated. To take few examples, they tried patenting basmati, they tried patenting turmeric, neem, yoga. They've tried practicing, there is now Christian yoga, Jewish yoga, Islamic yoga, where the school systems wanted to introduce it. There was an opposition by it, and now they have cleaned it, that there are no mantras and other things, but you can practice as an exercise. So yoga has been appropriated, and there are enough foolish mindsets wherein They have been invited on great stages and platforms where they would say, oh, yoga has got absolutely nothing to do with Hinduism. To a funny standpoint wherein one of them said yoga was given to us by Patanjali, and Patanjali is not even a part of India. He is uh, from Pakistan. Baba, when Patanjali Maharshi gave this yoga abhyasa through the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, there was no Pakistan. It was Akhanda Bharatavarsha. So these narratives of bashing, very innocently it starts saying, no, we are not bashing Hinduism. We are only standing up against the wrong practices in Hinduism. So we are against the Hindutva. So the dismantling global Hindutva very clearly, stage by stage, showed that first they said, oh, we have problem with Hindutva. Day one. I mean, I painfully went through all 3 days to understand what kind of nonsense are they spewing against us. So first is they said, we are against Hindutva only, the wrong practices. Then came in the second day wherein they said Hindutva cannot be separated from Hinduism. Then the third day they said, therefore, if we have to uproot or dismantle Hindutva, we have to necessarily uproot Hinduism. And this, by technical definition, is a bigoted hatred against the most ancient living continuous civilizational presence called Hinduism and Hindutva. Now one might say, if they have a problem with Hindutva, why don't we just drop it and change to something else? Let's go back to being called as Vedic Dharma or Sanatana Dharma. Let us drop this identity. Whether I choose to pick an identity or drop an identity, it will be my choice. It will be our choice as a collective entity. It will not be a forced environment by these forces in their oppressive. Today they say they drop Hindutva, we drop Hindutva. Tomorrow they say they drop something else. You are very, they have made it political. For us, it is existential. That difference has to be understood, because many of us who are standing as Hindus on the sidelines watching this think, oh, we don't want to get into politics. They are making it political. We are the ones for who it is an existential crisis if we don't stand up today. And then there are those who say, oh, we have stood these kinds of attacks for last thousands of years. So then what stops you from standing up after the 1000th year? Why be on the sideline and allow them bash to a point wherein many of us are thinking, should we drop Hindutva? No, we don't need to drop it, because it is the very essence of our practice. It is the essence of our culture. It is the essence of our civilization. Hence, therefore, it is our identity. Unquestionable, nobody can snatch it from me. Should we redefine it? Yes, that is a very crucial question. The reason I would say it's a very crucial question, whether we should redefine it. Before redefining it, I think we as Hindus should get our skin in the game, wherein we start understanding and realizing what our basic tenets are. Enough of the so-called osmosis, wherein I have picked it up from Amar Chitra Katha or B.R. Chopra's Mahabharata or Ramanand Sagar's Ramayana. At least I would say they had done their research. To a certain point, Chandra Prakash Dwivedi ji's Chanakya, very well researched work. Beyond this, have we even picked our book? Otherwise, the confusions are pretty deep, because these narratives have been run for several decades. So it has been through several generations. To untangle it, it would require for us to go back to understanding our basic tenets and understand the very root definitions of our identity. So it is not about redefining it, but going back to the root and understand the sanctity of that root. When we talk about the Sanatana Dharma, our basic text is Veda. Now the Veda is Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda and Atharva Veda. Then the auxiliary, that is called the Shruti. Then are the Itihasa, Ramayana, Mahabharata. Then comes the Purana, Ashtadasha Purana, meaning 18 Puranas. These are our, and the Smriti Granthas. And depending on who you read, Manusmriti, either it is the most famous or infamous, but that is not the only Smriti. There are several Smritis. So all this literature, how much of it that we as Hindu have taken time and effort to go and read, go and evaluate, get educated? Because wherever there is knowledge, that knowledge filled mindset is where there is empowerment possibility. So instead of redefining it, let us go identify what our root definitions are and start practicing it. That practice of it is what is going to bring that pride in our day-to-day life instead of redefining it. Now, what should we as in, whether it is in America or anywhere else, as Hindus should do? I would say, along with reconnecting with our basic tenets and understanding what Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma or Vaidika Dharma means, along with that, a strong connect with the history. Now, my way of looking at it, or my personal markers that I have, is there have been several amazing stalwarts within the context of Bharatiya civilization who have put in a very good in-depth effort in capturing the history, like for the example of the books of R.C. Majumdar. Then I think I'm going through R.C. Majumdarji's works. This is the second time that I'm going through his entire copious effort that he has put in 11 volumes. Then C.V. Vaidya, V.K. Rajwade, or Jadunath Sarkar, Swami Vivekanandaji's complete works. When we read through these voluminous works and understand the history prior to the first barbaric Islamic invasion, prior to the expansionist evangelist traders who came in different shades from Europe, prior to that, when you look at it, whether it is the Chola, whether it is the Vijayanagara Empire, or the Ahoms, or the Manipuris, or the Sisodias, or the Marathas, or the Malaya Travancore. So read that history to understand the greatness and the oppressive environments. And what is great that we have to take a moment to salute our entire ancestry is, in spite of this 1,000-year and continuing oppressive forces through barbaric practices or through narrative practices, they have stood. And having been practicing for the last 35 years myself and teaching this Vaidika Sanatana Dharma, I can say that about 95 to 96% of what we practice today, uncorrupted, undiluted processes have been given by our ancestors in spite of such oppressive environments. Where, just to reckon, several civilizations have been wiped out with 4 attacks, 5 attacks. If you read the Roman history, the Greek history, but this civilization had stood the test of time. It is now for us to reclaim the true definition and the pride in it to practice it. And that can happen only through the education practice. And this in a language which the next generation can understand. We have to put effort in understanding them, their mindsets. Last point here before I wind up is they have been under the influence of the socialistic order or the wokeism. We have to put an effort to understand what this influence is. Understand that that psychology, that influence, and be able to reach across to them and answer them, talk to them, and have a dialogue with them in their language. That is the key. To take this knowledge and wisdom to that particular mindset and deliver it. And that is where we would have a strong foundation established. So I'll stop here and there will be question answers. We'll open up for that.
Yeah, so Swamiji, we've just crossed the hour, okay? So, we have 2 more panelists in the next hour, so we're going to postpone questions until the end. I want to hand over this panel. Before I do that, I want to extend my very, very warm thank you to both Swami Mitrananda and Swami Sarveshananda ji. With that, let me hand it off to...
One second. Sarveshananda.
Hariam Swamiji.
Please handle the Q&A. It's
late for you.
9:30 already here.
Yeah.
And there's a temple function today.
Okay.
So I need to go for it. You please take the question answers. And just for your information, you'll be very, very happy to know that we have already worked on the history books for 6, 7, and 8. It has already been issued in Chinmaya Vidyalayas in Chennai and Vidya Bharati institutes in India, where about 22,000 schools they have. So this has already come and we are doing it as trial and error to make little corrections. This books would be on the academic side from next academic year. Okay. Thank you very much, people. It was nice talking to you. And I'm sure that if there are any questions to me, Sarveshananda would answer it. Thank you.